It's a big ask of anybody. I kind of shrugged it off because in season 1, everybody was involved in the company in some capacity with the exception of Nick.
You're exposed, and now we can see if you're just like getting lucky a lot, or if your thought process is really sound, or if your thought process is really shallow.
It's not safe, and it does take a lot of courage.
This sort of format is very stripped down, and it's giving people an insight into why poker is so complex, because ultimately, like, we, even as high-level players, like, we don't always know exactly the right answer, and people are going to see that.
The gall it took to reach out to Chewy and Minkin to see like if they'd be interested in doing this, I felt like on a limb. Like sending that video where it's like, hey, this is the concept, you're gonna be a little exposed, you know, you might be a little vulnerable to the situation, like what are your thoughts? And then both just resoundingly being like, I'm in. It's like, are you sure you thought this through?
Yeah, I would say it definitely takes courage. I mean, you're pretty much giving a host of individuals insight into your poker mind, some of which you may play against in the future and not have that awareness.
I am giving up a certain edge to those who use the information that's, you know, being exposed. But I think that, you know, you can always adjust.
I have to go into this knowing that it's a possibility that one of them is just going to completely own me, and there's going to be a hand out there on TV forever where I just got completely owned. But that's the game.
I've always been open to explaining why I do things, so I'm happy to, you know, do it in this arena.
But I just generally think in life, it's fun to do things in groups and like be a part of a team, and I just like the idea, so I was happy to help out when Berkey reached out.
All right, so I'm going to tell you the seating arrangement.
Okay.
Feel free to react. We're filming. So. C1, Chewy.
Okay.
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 Ooh.
C2, Matt Berkey.
All right.
Ooh, giving me position on the kid.
C3 is Christian.
Berkey's dead. Berkey's in trouble. That's good.
C4, Kelly Minkin.
All right.
C5 is Jordan.
Okay.
C6, Hunt or Jack.
Okay, that's interesting.
And you.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
I think this seating arrangement is going to be very interesting. I have position on Kelly and Christian, and I would like nothing more than to just punish Christian again this season. I love the kid, but man, watching the steam come out of his ears, there's no greater feeling in the world. So hopefully I get to do that. All right, I'm not gonna play this hand, but I'll give you a quick little synopsis on how I'm going to play tonight. I expect a lot of the pots to go through me or Berkey, so I'm looking forward to playing a bunch of big pots, and I think the game is just gonna play, I think there's gonna be a lot of big pots because him and I are sitting across the table from each other and not right next to each other. I'm gonna open a lot of hands, almost all the ones that I get a chance to. I'm tempted to open this one, but I'm gonna let the 8-3 of clubs go.
So I have a pretty reasonable hand here. I think that this is one of my better spots to open, given that it's Chin's big blind, and he's probably not going to defend as aggressively as someone like Berkey or Kelly might. So I'm going to open. I'm going to make it a reasonable size.
35.
So this is a hand that, against the cutoff open, I'm definitely gonna play. I think it's close between calling and 3-betting. In this case, I'm gonna opt for a call.
All right, I just want to talk really quickly about what I'm going to be doing from the small blind. This hand's a fold, but in a general sense, I think I'm going to be forced to defend the small blind rather aggressively. Chewy's going to be playing the button pretty loose, so I'm going to be looking for good spots to pull out and 3-bet.
Chewy stacks his chips in 50s. Never meet your heroes.
This is a reasonable flop. I think that my range has a lot of cards in it that connect with this board, but I'm definitely not going to be c-betting a high frequency against someone like Chewy who's going to defend pretty aggressively. I think this is a pretty close spot, but I think I probably should be c-betting.
Okay, so he c-bets for 45 into 85. I think calling and raising both have some merits here. If I were to raise, it would be with the intention of checking back and calling a turn bet on most cards. An opposite call.
That's a pretty bad card for my range. Chewy has a lot of floats in there in the 8-9 kind of region, 8-7, 9-7. I pick up no equity. Just probably needs to be a check fold.
I'm gonna choose to check this hand back and bet river one check two and decide whether to call or raise based on his bet size if he bets into me.
When Chewy checks back, he definitely has a lot of hands that have showdown value. I don't block any strong hands, and I do block a lot of the hands I would be trying to get to fold if I bluffed here. So again, I think this is just going to have to be a check fold.
So at this point, I think it's exceptionally likely that he has a hand like 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 9. I have some misdraws in my range. I have a decent amount of King X hands. I have quite a few 5X hands.
Easy fold.
Okay, yeah, we're playing this one. What I definitely plan to do from under the gun is to stay pretty constructed with Berkey being on the button and Chewy being in the cutoff. I expect them to play quite a few hands, but from here and from under the gun one, I'll have to be a little bit conscious of who's on the button or the cutoff. I'm not real sure how Matt's going to adapt yet, but I guess in time I will figure that out.
50.
So I may have thought about opening here if Jordan had folded, but it's still a pretty bad spot with Berkey on the button. He folds very few buttons, and Kelly's probably going to fold very few big blinds. So whether Jordan opens or not, there's not a lot I can do here.
It's pretty standard fold.
I'm never folding this hand. I think this is a pretty strong flop for my hand. I have backdoor outs and an open-ended straight draw. I'm almost 100% certain he's going to continuation bet, but I guess we'll see. It's not the greatest board for my defend range, so but I'm going to let him keep leading the way.
So this flop is pretty dynamic and is going to be, it's going to hit some of my range. There's not many hand combinations that she's going to be defending from the big blind, I wouldn't think, that also don't hit this flop. I can turn a few good cards with any spade, any king, any queen is obviously good, I make top pair, or a jack is going to give me an open-ender. If an ace comes, I anticipate I'm going to be check two almost always, and that'll be my best bluff card. But on this flop, I expect her to continue at a really high frequency, so I am going to check back.
So he's smarter than I thought, and he decided to check. But I think this is a really good card for me to bet. So I'm going to bet. I'm going to bet a little more than pot.
115.
I like this bet a lot, whatever she has. I definitely cap myself by checking back on the flop in her eyes, I would anticipate, but I would most definitely check back a hand like ace 10, king 10, or queen 10, because all of those hands are very susceptible to being turned dead. And for that reason, I would check back. Those three combinations will definitely be my best top pair candidates to check back because they also don't have a straight draw. So when I'm checking back those hands, I'm just looking for low cards that don't complete the straight, and my range will be, my hand specifically will be very hidden, and I think that that's the best way to get value out of a 10 on a board like this. I just had one of my few hands that I can't bet on this flop.
Just like I thought, folded like a little bitch.
This is pretty much just a fold every time. I'm not going to be opening this hand at this table. It's too tough.
All right, this is a pretty standard cutoff open for most. I expect to face a lot of resistance, but I have to kind of stick to the plan for now.
50. All right, essentially we want to figure out what kind of dynamic we want to build with Berkey here. I could obviously begin with a heavy 3-bet strategy. However, I think that his opens are more protected than everybody else's because I don't think Minkin or Jordan want to start 3-betting. So I am going to implement a flat heavy strategy, and that's what we're going to do.
My hand is shit. I'm gonna fold.
Pot odds. All right, getting some very interesting flops. I am not going to be able to lead on this one, but a one like 7, 8, 9 or 6, 7, 8 would have been a perfect one to lead on, just because I would have been able to squeeze Berkey, who the original raiser was, and that had a lot to do with the reason that I flatted, and just because my hand was so bad that if I hit it, I think I can play a big pot. But that board, we're checking.
All right, so this is a pretty interesting situation. I have a hand of very marginal showdown value with a backdoor nut flush draw, which is very important. However, this is a texture where I'm going to face a lot of resistance. Now, in this instance, I'm incredibly protected because both Jordan and Chin would be 3-betting king-queen at a pretty high frequency. So they're both relatively capped to 2-pair, some of which I block. But in order for me to navigate the showdown here, I expect that I'm going to have to check call twice. These spots are incredibly close. I think it's a scenario where I just have to start with a check. And if Christian bets, I may be relegated to just folding because I can't really over-realize this spot.
I knew he was gonna check. Like, it's just like, he's obviously gonna check. This is the board he checks. Why did he take so long? Well, this is the fucking nuts. So we obviously flop heavy range advantage here. We are going to want to bet this board pretty often when original raiser checks. The great thing about having the nuts here is that Berkey likes to check raise these boards a decent amount of the time. Pot is 150. We're gonna bet pretty large. We're gonna want to bet a lot of our draws here pretty large, a lot of our two pairs. So this is the same thing. Pot's 150. We're going to bet 150.
So this is one of those situations where I can't really over bluff catch. It's strange because he doesn't have very many strong hands, but my assumption could just be wrong. And blocking the 9 doesn't really do me that much good. Blocking the nut flush draw reduces his combinations of bluffs. If I choose to continue, it's just gonna be incredibly difficult to arrive at showdown. And if I improve through a diamond, I can't really even seize aggression in this spot, so I'm just gonna let it go. All right, I'm gonna keep opening. I expect Christian to continue flatting, but I'm gonna deal with that problem as it comes.
50.
Same strategy is going to continue here. We are mostly going to be flatting Berkey. We flatted with king queen offsuit, so flatting with 5-4 suited is going to be the same thing. We're not going to implement too much of a 3-bet strategy, especially on Berkey's opens. I think his opens are rather protected, so we want to keep calling.
All right, I can't believe it took me this long to figure out that there's only one place I should attempt to take this game, and it's straight into chaos. I operate best there. You know, it's just gonna suit me better than I think everyone else at the table. So here, I have ace king. This is a good time to start with a huge 3-bet squeeze, and I'm just gonna use a ridiculous size of 675 sounds good.
Trivial fold here.
I gotta tell you, I can't wait to hear the explanation behind what the fuck he thinks he's going to accomplish doing this. I mean, pulling out this much pre, like, what equity are you even gonna deny? Okay, the 9 high is gonna hit the muck. I guess I would examine this spot more so from like having pocket 10s or king queen. Thing is, those hands are just like equity dense, and I think that against a profile like Jordan, the pairs we would just play for stacks, the king queens we would probably just overfold.
My name is Jordan. I play tournaments. I don't want to play post flop. I'm going to make it an obnoxious size.
I'm not really sure what I think Joe might have had there. It's a very weird sizing, so I'm curious to see if he does that again. Another trivial fold.
I saw her hand, but I'm not going to tell her that I saw her hand, but now I know what she's opening. Nice ace-3 off open there, pretty wide.
All right, so getting dealt some good hands and have a pretty easy open with Queen Jack of Spades here. If it was open in front of me, I would 3-bet this hand, but I wasn't fortunate enough for that to happen. I'm just going to open to 50 here, and I will be defending against all 3 bets.
Nothing I can really do with this hand. Even if it folded to me, I would have been folding it on Berkey's big blind.
So I have kind of a weird spot from a strategic sense. I have the ability to kind of like take a lot of flops against Jai, where I think he'll over defend against check raises. So it's good to have equitable hands like this so that I could begin having a more aggressive check raise frequency. But along the same lines, I think he's also going to under 4-bet. So this really just comes down to an equation of what way does he best realize his equity. And I think it's probably in scenarios where I steal initiative and he just gets creative peeling post. So I'm actually just gonna call in this spot. Okay, so I start by flopping top pair. I obviously unblock diamonds. And this is one of those spots where I think I can get like kind of razor thin through check raises. I'm obviously going to start with a check. I think I'll explain my reasonings behind playing this spot a little bit more aggressively, assuming that he bets somewhere in the neighborhood of 2/3 pot.
All right, this is a very advantageous flop for me. Not only because I flop top pair with this specific hand, but because it is relatively broken up. And what I mean is just the separation of Queen 8-3. It doesn't allow for a ton of draws unless he does have diamonds or like a gutty, but since I have a jack in my hand, that's even less likely. I'm gonna start this with just real standard bet, 3/4 size pot, 75.
Okay, so in this scenario, I actually have a great bluff catcher. And it's a spot where like, I think a check raise could serve me. The problem is that he can't really over defend against a check raise here. If he has hands like 9-10, Jack-10, King-10, any queen obviously, kings, aces, ace-king, he's not doing that badly against my hand. So I'm actually just gonna check call. I will be choosing to lead maybe no turns. I think I'm gonna take a check call 3 line. Yeah, I think I'm gonna check call 3 here. So that's a good range card for Jordan to continue to double barrel. I'm going to be continuing through a check call again, and then I'll be calling all rivers that are not a jack, king, or ace.
So I think this card specifically should hit him a little bit in the way of 2 pairs, but I think it's really important to point out that the only 2 combinations of 2 pairs that I think he could have would be Queen 8 suited and 10-8 suited. And there would only be 10-8 of hearts or 10-8 of, no, he's defending all offsuit combinations for sure. Queen 8, on the other hand, I think is probably just hearts and spades, but I have a spade in my hand, making it less likely that he has Queen 8. Yeah, I think this is one of the cards that I can bet, and then I will be checking back on the river unless I improve, because I don't think he can call 3 with worse hands. Maybe like Queen 9 specifically. But when it's only that hand, I need to make sure I'm charging like 9-10, 8-9, Jack-10 and Jack-8, but those are less likely since I have a Jack. But yeah, I'm gonna be charging all the other hands. I am going to bet about pot here. And if I'm raised, I think I have a pretty easy fold, because I think that his hand would have to be pretty strong to check raise a pot size turn bet here. I think there's about 255 in the pot. I am going to bet 250 just to simplify things a little bit.
Okay, so when Jordan begins to pull out here, he, in my opinion, is very likely making mistakes. I think top up hole at this point is overpairs and like king queen plus, which is reasonably fine, but I block a lot of his queens. He has a lot of available bluffs in king jack, any diamonds, any clubs, ace king, ace jack. What I think I will do, I'll definitely, I mean, I'm obviously calling here. I'm just trying to determine if I'm going call on all non-jack king ace rivers, or if I am going to be folding some other non-rivers. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go call. I don't think there's any reason to do anything else. And I expect the river bet to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000. I'm just gonna stick to the plan here and check. I actually think I can kind of induce with a lead, but my hand's probably a little bit too weak.
All right, like I said, I'm going to check back here on the river because I think his range simply only consists of one pair plus straight draws, and they can't call 3 streets, or they're diamond draws that missed, or I'm beat. I think he would play a straight or 2 pair like this in the hopes of getting a safe river card, and he's going to check raise. I think a turn check raise would just be too strong and would get me to fold a lot of my 1 pair range, which I would have folded this hand very easily. I basically think he has hands he can't call with and hands he can check raise me with. Not very many hands at all that he can call with. So check. Found the one hand in the entire deck that I could have gotten value from. And it had to be specifically Queen 9 of Hearts. And maybe I could have gotten value from him. He might have check folded out of the river.
I don't think Berkey expected to see that hand after that turn sizing. When he goes check, Berkey thinks he wins a lot there, I think.